Good morning, everyone out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared, and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. This video is going to focus on how do you remove and replace a fuel pump out of a 1995 Mazda Miata MX-5 of the NA generation. Without further ado, let's get started. Okay, first thing that's going to need to happen is to know where we're going to have to access from, which is going to be up here. There is an access panel underneath the carpet here behind the seats. So my suggestion is put your seats forward, push them forward as far as you can. And then we're going to need to get the big flap. I think this is called the parcel tray. Get the big flap of carpet out of the way. You may or may not have fasteners, but if you do, a trim tool like this should be adequate to get them out of the way. And then once we can get this out of the way, we can take a look at our access plate. We may need to take the top down. I'm hoping not, because I think that actually would wind up getting in our way. Don't forget that you may have fasteners that are further back, like this guy here that's towards the back of the tray. Hopefully we don't have to take all of these out. Let's see what we get. So we've got carpet here, right? And then underneath the carpet, we have got some sound deadener. Yeah, we got to lift the sound deadener too. And it's looking like to me it's probably going to be easier to fully remove the carpet. So if that is the case, then we're going to want to take out, you've got all your fasteners that go along your rain rail here in the back. I don't know how well that's going to pick up, but they go all the way around. I think there's 13. That's going to need to come out. And then you've got, see if I can pick it up right there. Those guys, they come out with just a Phillips, not a big deal, but they're going to have to come out too. You get all that out, you can take this entire rear carpet out, and we may or may not wind up wanting to take out this, I think that's a roll bar. Take that out too. That's not too tough. If we wind up having to do it, we just take this decorative cover off, and there's like a 13 millimeter under there, and then we'll have full access to work on what we need to work on. All right, so there is a, like I said, there's like a moisture barrier or insulative piece here. And at least in my case, you know, the insulation's not sticking where it needs to stick, so you gotta peel it away, which I did. And that leaves you with this access door right here. And it is held in place with, it's probably JIS standard, but you can use a Phillips, and if you're careful, get these guys loose. Looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we need to take out. So we'll get these 6 out of here. You probably want to clean this up best you can, because once you take this open, it should give us access to the gas tank, but we want to make sure, you know, junk doesn't fall in the tank whenever we go to pull the whole unit out. So let's do what we can. All right, got those out. I got lucky that none of them were super rusty. So there we go. Let's see what's behind door number 1. Oh, nice. Somebody was making a home back here. That's lovely. All right, so we've got fuel lines back here. We've got, not sure what that guy is. Goes in the tank. Maybe that's the cinder. Maybe that's the vent for the tank. Not 100%. But over there is our fuel pump. That's what we need to replace, because the check valve that is built into the pump, in my case, is bad. The pump itself is fine, but the check valve's bad. So got to work on that. Looks like we got a bunch of eensy weensy little probably JIS again. To get this sucker out, we have an electrical connector, and then we have our, should be our outlet and our inlet. So our outflow to the engine and the return to the tank. I don't know which is which. Normally these two sizes would be different, but I think what Mazda did is made them the same size, so you can't just eyeball the line size and, you know, have what you need to know. Which means pay attention when you take these off on who goes where, because, you know. Alternatively, after we get all this done, if you're not sure who goes where as far as which one's going to do what, you can always run the fuel pump. You should get fuel spurting out of one of them, and you know that's to your engine, but then you guys still got to know which one of these is the right one. So you may want to get like a paint pen or something, you know, mark, make a mark, make a mark, make a mark, make a mark, so that you're good to go and know which one goes where. Now, before you go and pull fuel lines, make sure that you don't have any fuel pressure in the line, or you're going to get a spurty mess all over the place. So if your vehicle is sat for a few days and you haven't driven it, you're probably fine. If you've driven it recent-ishly, you're going to need to, somewhere, you could do it here, you could do it up at the engine bay, the fuel line's up there, but you're going to have to crack a line and let the pressure out. So if you're going to do it back here, get some paper towels or something so you don't wind up with a big old mess. I used some, I guess these are called clip pliers. I call them 90-degree pliers. But I use these to move these back. I made marks, 1 and 2. Hard to see, but 1 and 2. In case it's not stupidly simple, easy for me to tell which one's what. And what you may also have to do, if you haven't done this in a while, is take a pick, get it underneath the fuel line and kind of break it free from the nipple it's on. Otherwise, it's going to be really tough to pull these off. And I can't do it one-handed, but take again, like a 90-degree pick, get under it, and you'll start moving around like this, kind of break it free. If it's really stuck, trickle a little bit of silicone spray in there, and that'll help. And then get this off, and then we'll take care of this electrical connector, which, okay, that's pretty easy. That's just push it down and pull. Probably, you know, I'm probably a girly man and I can't get it out. Yep. I'll have to take a tool and push there and then pull here. But pop that loose, and then we should be able to go after these screws, and they were kind enough to make sure there's no screw right there. This is here and here. So we should be able to get this out. Okay, so I got these out of the way. That was kind of fun. This I was looking at wrong. You needed to squeeze back here, and once you squeeze that, it's pretty easy to take loose. So not a big deal there. These little itty bitty tiny Phillips came out real easy. I used something a little oversized, but because the torque was so low, didn't matter. And then I used my 90-degree pick. I noticed there was a lip right here, so I lifted on this lip, and I had to, you know, lift a bit, but it popped loose. So now this whole unit is loose. Not 100% on how we wiggle this out of here. I'm gonna have to figure that out. But we're gonna try to need to, you know, shove these hoses out of the way and get this connector out of the way so that we can lift this guy up and out. And remember, depending on how full your fuel tank is, you're going to be dripping some gas. So before you pull this out, do get those paper towels so you don't drip gas everywhere. The other thing to remember is at this point your tank is open, so you're going to have gasoline vapors accumulating. So number one, it's going to make inside of your car maybe stink a little. Number two, it's gasoline vapors. They're pretty flammable. So I wouldn't use any kind of heat sources at this point in time in the area until you ventilate it, because you just might set something on fire. So let's take a look at this. All right, let's see what it takes to get this guy out of here. Apparently not too much. Just pull it to the side and out it comes. Be careful when you take it out of your fuel, your cinder. Okay, that's going to be this long metal arm here. You want to make sure you don't bend it up, anything like that. So this is also a chance we can look in the tank. And the tank looks good. Looks really good. I don't see any yuckiness in there. I dig it. Okay, so I mean, there is some in there because you see the sock, which the sock here is, I probably need to replace it. You see how it's torn right there? This is your first filter. When you're filtering your gas to keep junk that's in the fuel or junk in the tank from getting into the pump and damaging it. So we will see what I want to do there, because I don't have a replacement sock. May have to go get one, which would be a little annoying, but the good news is the sock isn't mush to where fuel can't even be picked up. That also will happen. But looking here, you can tell pretty easily what is our inlet and our return. See, that's going to be fuel going out to the engine right there. We have to get that piece out of there. I'll have to see if somebody's replaced this before. I'm going to suspect someone has, but we'll see. Anyway, be careful getting your cinder out, and then I'm going to take this over to the bench and we're going to work on swapping out the pump. All right, so a couple of things. First thing is this sock is done. Hear that? Hear how crispy that is? She's done. So gonna need to go get a new sock. That's got to happen. The other thing I'm looking at is here is our replacement pump, and at first blush it looks basically identical to what's in there. Okay, so this retaining strap's about done too. See that? Yeah, she's done. And this seemed a little bit special. I would just put a zip tie in to replace it, but I don't know if zip ties are gasoline resistant or not. I think that's just an additional thing to hold the pump secure, because I mean it's not going anywhere really, but I'll look into that. We have an electrical connector that we just need to pop out, and then we're going to have some fuel hose that we're going to have to take care of, which would be a little interesting. And I may take the cinder assembly off just to get that out of the way so I don't damage it, because right now it works fine. I want to keep it that way because, you know, this is a float, and if this float gets a hole in it, it don't float no more, and then your gas gauge doesn't read right. The other thing that normally happens to these is the needle where they're delivering a voltage up to the needle that you see in your instrument cluster, they can get worn out and then it won't read right. But anyway, I think we got the right pump, so I'm gonna go get what I need to get, and I'm probably gonna take this off. Looks like it's pretty straightforward. We just undo these two nuts here and then this will come off. And there might be an electrical connector on the other side we got to take care of. And we'll start working on taking this off. Okay, wanted to give you guys an update on how we got to take some of this apart. So the electrical on the sender is held in with this connector, and you got to push this little spring lever all the way in before it's going to wiggle out. That plugs in up here where that electrical connector goes on the other side. To get the sock off, there's two things you got to do if you're doing the sock. Thing number one is you got to take this little bracket off. This bracket has a little rubber boot in it. You do get a new one with the pump kit, at least the one I bought. That's held in with this JIS screw. It's going to be tight. I suggest you lock everything in a vise so you can put the weight of your authority on it. Otherwise you will round it out. As you can see, I almost did. And then it's still not going to come off because while that's where the sock goes, there's a little clip that mounts right there that holds the sock in place. Here it is. I think I'll be able to reuse it, but be really careful when you take that off. I was able to take it off with just a jeweler's slotted screwdriver with some patience. Other thing, when you're taking the sender off, I wound up using a 7mm. We got two little nuts. They're not torqued on very tight, but 7mm to get those off, to get that end off. And then you got this off, and then you get your sock off, which you can see it's done. So now we're to the electrical connector here. And how that works, as you can see, is you need to press really hard in the middle until you get this little bump here past its stop in the connector housing, the female side. Again, jeweler's slotted screwdriver to take care of that one. Now we're here. I'm going to go grab those circlip pliers I have, those 90-degree pliers. And based on how this is looking, this has not been serviced in a very long time. If ever, it may be the original fuel pump. If so, kudos to Mazda. 30 years of use, no service, no maintenance. That's pretty good. So I got a new one of these little hose sections in my kit. We should be able to reuse these spring clamps because they haven't been played with a lot, so they should have still all their tension force. And I should be able to slide these off, and then I can just take the pump and twist and wiggle to break it loose, and we should be fine. But I do still need to go buy a new sock. Check this out. It might be a little hard to read, but that says Denso. So this is the original 30-year-old fuel pump. And the pumpy part still works fine. It's just the check valve's bad. That's super neat. So scratch some of that. I just realized I had a brain fart. The sock needs to go on before you put this boot in place. And if I had reviewed my footage, I would have seen that. But sock first, then retainer clip, then boot, and we should be good to go. All right, I had covered that opening with a towel just to make sure nothing could fall in there. But here we are reassembled. I checked my footage to make sure this was the correct orientation for the sender because I didn't want it to be 180 degrees off. It does need to go back in the tank a certain way. So one other thing to do before you put all this back in is I'm reusing this gasket because mine's in okay shape, but it has these 4 kind of locking pins to hold the gasket in place inside this housing here as you go to put it in. So pop those 4 back in so it's sitting tight. Make sure you check all your electricals, that you got everything plugged back in, right? It's gonna be pretty annoying. You gotta take all this back out. And you're gonna have to lower in there carefully, being mindful of your sock, being mindful of the float and the arm on your sender. Okay, I need 2 hands to do this, but basically I'm gonna kind of come in at this angle, straighten it out. Remember, that the edge of this housing actually is under metal. So you're gonna have to come in from here and then slide it over. And then we'll start putting those little tiny screws back in and reconnect the rest of it. And we can cycle the key, make sure we hear the pump running, make sure we have good pressure, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Alrighty, I had a screw roll off into the void, so I'm down one, but I've got the other ones on pretty tight. This isn't going anywhere. I mean, I don't think this has to hold a ton of pressure to keep vapor in the tank, so we'll see. I mean, if this was a newer car, that might throw an evap code. This one's old enough, it probably won't do anything but make the cab stinky. We shall see. Bomb, bomb, bomb. All right, so next step, let's make sure our fuel pump's working and we're holding pressure and our check valve's doing what it's supposed to do. Okay, we're up at the front of the vehicle. This is the diagnostic block. And you'll notice I've got a jumper in there of my own making. But what we're doing is we're jumping, show you the diagram here. We're jumping ground down to FP. FP is fuel pump. So if you jump the fuel pump to ground, what that's gonna do is when you turn the key on to the run position, which is when all your electronics turn on and everything, the pump is going to run continuously as long as it has key power, providing that your fuel relay and everything is good. And then over here, and this is left over from my troubleshooting video, I've got a tap set up in the fuel line to give me pressure readings. And we are looking for, I think, somewhere between 40 to 50 when it's running. And what we want to see, and what I was not seeing, the reason why I did all this, is that when we turn the pump off and we let it sit, we should see it go down to about 20 psi and then hang out at 20 psi overnight, thereabouts. And if we do, we're good. It means that our seals at our injectors are good, which I've already determined they are, and that our check valve at the fuel pump is working correctly. So let's go find out. All right, I'm gonna go twist the key and let's see what we get. Well, I hear it running. We've got about 45 psi, so that's looking pretty good. So let's turn it off, see what we get. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go wander away for an hour or two. We'll come back in an hour and two, see if we're still sitting above 20 psi, because what I saw last go around is after about 2 hours I was down to about 0, which is not what you want. And what that leads to is long cranks, because you can't build pressure. Or you can build pressure, but it takes you a minute to get there. So anyway, I'm going to go wander off for 2 hours. See you in 2 hours. Good morning, everyone. Today is a new day. So the good news is that this is after 5 minutes or so, and I did some more reading, and apparently the spec is that you can hold 25 pounds of pressure for at least 5 minutes after you turn the engine off. As you can see, we're at 35. And the engine's been off for over, well, I cycled the pump because I still have it jumpered, and it's been off for over 5 minutes, so that's not moving. That definitely fixed that problem. We definitely had a check valve issue, but still having the long crank issue. So my next target, and this will be a different video because it's a different thing, is to go after the fuel filter, which sits behind some plastic behind this tire. Anyway, we successfully got the new fuel pump installed. It's running. The car does run. I cranked it off camera and it runs fine. You can rev it and everything. It doesn't bog or die. So this is a successful repair.